Hey, I'm Mechanical Engineer, and today we're going to be taking a look at how you can get started designing in FreeCAD. If you're brand new to CAD designing in general, or just new to the FreeCAD software and don't want to get lost or confused with all the different things it offers, then congratulations. You've come to the right place. Because in today's video, I'm going to teach you the quick and dirty basics of how to design something in FreeCAD, turn that design into an actual tangible item using a 3D printer, and all the steps in between. Now, one other thing before we get started, my screen recording software unfortunately bit the dust before I could film this video, so I ended up just filming the screen with my camera like a hillbilly. But calm down, I promise it's not as bad as it sounds. Enough talk though, without any further ado, let's jump into the complooper. And boom goes the dynamite. We are in. Now, as you can see, this is the FreeCAD Start Center. This is basically the welcoming page that will load every time you open up the software. Now, when you begin, you want to go up to the Surprise Start drop-down menu. And if we click that, you can see there are a whole bunch of different windows, and each one of these basically has its own world. But all we want to focus on today is the Part window. Surprisingly, not the Part Design window, just the Part window. So we go ahead and click that. And there you go. You see a lot of the buttons went dark and a few more lit up. So now we're going to go over here to the new page, a white piece of paper with like a yellow sun on the top right. Click on that. And there we go. Now we are in the parts window, ready to make some magic.
Do not cite the deep magic to me, witch. I was there when it was written.
Magic.
But if you look on the bottom, these are our page tabs, kind of like a search engine we have on the top. And we have our start page, and then our part page that we just opened, and we don't need the start page anymore, so you can go ahead and close that off. And now we're left with just the part page, ready to build some stuff. Now, if I may direct your attention up here to the top right, you'll see we have a couple different yellow buttons, and these are our shapes. Basically, no matter what you build in this window, it's always going to start out with one of these shapes. We have a cube. As you can see, it is three-dimensional. We then also have a cylinder. We then have a sphere. We then have a cone. And lastly but not least, a donut shape, which if you paid attention in school, this is actually the shape of our planet Earth. Now, since I want to build something with a Tetris theme, I'm going to want to start off with a cube like this one. Oh yeah, and it's also very important to note that anything you load in the screen is also represented over here in your build tray. It's not called a build tray, but I'm going to call it a build tray. Basically, it's just a part list of everything you have loaded here, and if you do something like cut into this, or maybe we're going to go ahead and taper one of the sides, like I'll go ahead and do that right now. Like that, you will see it goes to fillet instead of just a standard block, which kind of gives you a heads up of what the last thing you did to the cube was. And something else important to note, if you look up here on these blue boxes, these manipulate what you're building so you get different viewpoints from it. We have the front, the top, we have a couple sides over here, the back, and then lastly, which is my personal favorite one, we have this little angled one which allows you to see 3 of the sides at a time, which is really convenient. And then for zoom, you can just use your mouse's scroll wheel to zoom out or in. And say you're zooming out or in and you lose your part, you don't know where it's at, you can very simply find it by just right-clicking, select Fit All, and no matter what you're working on or how big it is, it'll always center it in the screen, which is really nice as well. Now, as I just said, I want to design something very Tetris-y, and so I think makes the most sense if I just go ahead and start building it, and I'll explain what I'm doing along the way, and hopefully that'll help it all make a lot more sense. So what I'm going to do is design a Tetris business card holder. So we'll have a few of the basic Tetris blocks, maybe with a few cutouts in it so you can slide in the business cards, and if we do it right, I think it'll really end up looking cool. Now, if you've ever played Tetris, I'm sure you've noticed that all of the pieces are built upon the same identical blocks, just put in different shapes. And so to begin our build, what we really need to first decide is how large we want our base block to be. Right now, it is a 10mm cube, which is what it starts out with, but I think I want it to be about 25mm cubed. So if we go over here and select cube, or we could just double click cube, you can see that this little property window drops down, and at the bottom we have length, width, and height. And we'll just go ahead and change all those to 25, because we said we want this to be 25mm cubed. And then there we go, we have a 25mm cube. And also, you see down here, I have mine set on millimeters. I believe you can also switch it to inches if you want. However, I fail to see a point in doing that. Millimeters really just seems to work the best for me. So that's what I'm doing. Now, in order to make this look as realistic as possible, I believe we should probably taper in these sides. As you can see, you can click them one at a time, or what I'm going to do is push the control button, and I'm going to go ahead and select all of the corners. Just like that. I believe that's all of them. Now we go over here to our angling piece, and right now you can see it's set on 1 millimeter. This just tells you how severely it will angle the corners, and I think 1 millimeter is probably good, so let's go ahead and try that. Yeah, you know what? I think I like that. And if we get a side view here, you can see what's going on, and they do actually angle these like a quarter circle, which is really nice. So now we have our basic block, and I like how it looks, and I like its size. What I'm going to do is go over here and select it, right click it, copy it, go ahead and push no on that one, and then we'll right click again and paste it. Now, just like you do on any other window, as you can see, we just copied and pasted the piece, but you can't see the second piece because it's stacked on top of the first. So what we're going to do is select the second piece, go down here to the placement window, that'll drop down, we'll click position, and then here we go, we have the X, Y, and Z axis. So we'll go up 25 millimeters on the Y axis, and look at that, beautiful. So as you can see, there is no overlap in the two blocks, but they are touching side to side. So if I were to add 0.01 millimeter right there, you can see this gap was just created. I delete it, it goes away. Kind of tells you how close they are. So to start off, I think I want to build the L piece, so I'll go ahead and paste another one of these. There we go, only this one will do -25, so that sticks out on the other side. Perfect. And now I'll go ahead and copy that last one and paste it like that, and then we'll move this one on the Z axis, 25. Perfect. And you can see I copied this one and pasted it so I didn't have to move it over and then up. Now, as you can see, we have our basic L shape, and you know what? I'm liking how that's looking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here and push shift and then select all of these pieces, and then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to fuse them all together. There we go. So now it is one solid piece, and it's not 4 separate pieces. So now if we wanted, we could just move this one piece as a unit, or you can delete it as a unit or copy and paste it as a unit. Really, whatever you want to do. The computer now sees this as one piece. And you know what? Now that we have a little bit of progress made, even though it might not be a whole lot, I'm going to go ahead and go over here and save our project. Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and periodically save throughout the building process. First of all, because it's just a good habit to form. And second of all, it's kind of like a video game save point. If for whatever reason you want to go back and change something, it's super cool to be able to have that option. With that, I'm going to go ahead and start constructing the other pieces, which are basically the same base blocks, just put in different shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and get on that. Okay, here we are with the basic blocks that I want to use. However, I want to turn this one 90 degrees so it's facing me. In order to do that, all I need to do is double click it. I'll then go up to edit, select the placement button, and now here we are in the placement window. Now if you look here, it says rotation. Click the drop down, and we want to select the bottom option. Unfortunately, I can't read that right now because it's too far away, but just trust me, that's the one we want. Now beneath that we have yaw, pitch, and roll, and I believe we want to adjust yaw unless I am mistaken. Nope, I'm not mistaken, but I think I might have just done that backwards, and I did. So let's go with -90. There we go, and I like that, so I'll go ahead and select OK. So the block is turned at 90 degrees just in the direction that I wanted to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and put all these blocks in place like I have them envisioned in my head, and let's see where we are after that. And here we are. I think this is the general shape I wanted to be. I know it's super hard to see, but we have a little 3-pronged triangular piece, the Z piece, the L piece that the cards are going to drop into, and then the cube over here. I just realized I don't know any of these shapes' proper names except the cube and the L. I feel like there's probably a second grader watching somewhere like, man, what idiot, that's obviously a Zecadecatron. But anywho, I'm not going to fuse these individual pieces together because I don't want to print it as one giant Mondo monster piece, because that would be super lame. My 3D printer, like most 3D printers, can only print one color at a time. So I want to print these pieces individually so I can get the full color spectrum that I have envisioned in my head. So it actually looks like Tetris pieces. But we do have a very difficult decision to make. Do I want to just print these out like the regular pieces they are and then super glue them together, which would be easy, or do I also want to put in some pins so they kind of snap in place and line themselves up so I can glue them together? I don't want to put in the pins because it's going to take a little bit more time, but I think that's probably the best option, so let's get busy on doing that. So I went ahead and copied and pasted every single one of our pieces into their own individual windows because I think it should be a lot easier to work with them that way. So to kick things off, I'm going to go ahead and start out with the cube piece. I think this will probably be the easiest one to do. So as I'm sure you remember, we have this L piece that sits on top of this block piece. And what we're going to want to do is have some kind of pin system sticking up from the block that will go into the L piece. I'm going to place a cylinder down here. And I'm going to do my very best to center it into one of these side squares. Here we go. That looks centered, but is it? Well, we can actually find out pretty easily by clicking this ruler icon up here. And then we just click on 2 points. I'll do the outside of my box and then the outside of my cylinder. And that gives us our measurement. So these 2 points are 11.29 millimeters away. And keep in mind that that is measuring on a 3-dimensional plane, so it's also giving us height and distance and not just distance. So now we'll just repeat that process for the other 3 sides and make sure that this is centered. So it actually turns out it was 0.02 millimeters off, but I have that squared away, so we're good to go. Now as for height, I think I only want this to stick up about 5 millimeters. I really think that's all we need. So I'll go ahead down, count out 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and perfect. Now we'll just copy and paste that cylinder and then move it over to the center of its sister square. There we go. Absolutely beautiful.
Beautiful.
So I have these cylinders with a 2 millimeter radius, which I think I like. So this is where things are going to get a little bit complicated, but just hold on with me. I promise it'll make sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to fuse these 2 pieces together, just like that. We're then going to copy that fuse, but we are not going to paste it. Then we're going to delete it. I know that sounds confusing, but again, hold on with me. Now we're going to go down to the radius and we're going to change it from 2 to 2.04. So we're making these 0.04 millimeters larger. Well, the radius 0.04. Anyway, perfect. And now we'll raise each of them up 0.5 millimeter. So they'll stick up 0.5 millimeter more. Perfect. There we go. Now these are slightly larger than the previous model. So we're going to repeat the process and fuse these 2 together, just like that. And now we can go ahead and paste our previous model beneath those. There we go. So now we have the much larger ones, well not much larger, but the larger ones on top and the smaller ones hidden down beneath. Now here is why we did that. We could go over here to the first window and copy our L piece. And the computer should remember where this was placed on our square block, and so it should automatically place it in the correct place when we paste, and it does. So now we're going to select our L piece, push Control, and then select our larger set of pins, and then push the cutout button, the white and blue circle, just like that. Now if I can position this so you can see it, you'll notice that there are 2 small holes cut in the bottom of the L piece, and then these are those other pins that we still have remaining. Now I'll just raise up our L piece so we can see what we're doing, and then we can go ahead and fuse these pins to the cube itself. Perfect, just like that. And while we're at it, I'll go ahead and angle the top of these pins at 0.5 millimeters each so that they'll go into the holes a little bit easier and a little bit more smooth. Wonderful. Now, in case you haven't already figured it out, the reason why we had to make the cutouts slightly larger than the pins themselves is so it'll all fit together appropriately. If we made the pins and the holes the exact same size, believe it or not, it wouldn't actually fit together simply because of how the 3D printer prints. I sure hope that made sense, but if it didn't, don't sweat it, it will in a few minutes. And so with that, these two pieces are done and ready to be put together. However, we do have to repeat the process for the other blocks and pieces. But don't worry, I'm not going to make you watch it.
A few centaurs later.
I finished putting in all the pegs and holes. You can't necessarily see them all because of the rotation, but trust me, they're there. And so now all we have left to do before we can export these and actually start printing them is we have to cut out the channel in the L piece that's actually going to hold the business cards. So I'm going to click the block here, and I can't see it, so I'm going to raise it up a little bit so we can actually figure out what we're working with. So now we want it to be 15 millimeters wide. We want it to be 40 millimeters tall. And it really doesn't matter how long, we just want to be able to stick out. So let's go ahead and just mark that at 80. Perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and position this in place inside the block. I want it to be 10 millimeters above the base of this block, 10 millimeters in front of the back of this. I want it to be centered perfectly in this block. So it should be about 5 millimeters of extra space on each side. So like I said, we have a 10 millimeter gap here. It is also 10 millimeters from the base, and then there's 5 millimeters on each side here. So now, just like we did before, we need to select the L piece, then we'll hit Control, and while we're holding down Control, we'll hit the block, and then we'll cut it out with the cutting button. Wonderful, and now it is time to export all of these files. So what we want to do is select the file we want to export. We'll have to do them all one at a time. So we'll select it, we'll then go up to File, and then we'll select, what do you know, Export. Now this will pop up your page and it'll give you several options of how you want to save it. As you can see, there is a whole ton of different options we can choose. But what we want is the STL mesh. At least that's what I use to print them. I mean, depending on what you want to do with your file, you might want to select a different one. But for now, we'll just focus on the STL mesh. We'll type in whatever we want to name this, and you might see I have technically already saved these files, but just for the sake of it, let's call this Bob21. And now it is saved. Look at that. Wonderful. So now we'll just go through and export all the other files, and once we're done, we'll open up our slicing software, which for me is Cura. So here we are in Cura. Now, in order to import our files so we can print them, we'll just go over here to Open Files and click that. And they'll then bring you to your computer, and now we just have to find the folder that we saved the STL files in. And here we are. Now we'll just select the file we want to import and open it up, then let it load, and there we go. But as you can see, there is a slight problem. The 3D printer can't print this ledge without supports, and I don't want to use supports, but lucky for us, there's an easy option. All we need to do is select it, select this little turnabout one, and then just drag the red circle over to 90 degrees, which is right there, and now it should print perfectly flat, and we won't have to worry about supports at all. All we need to do now is hit prepare. It will prepare the file. There we go. Now we'll just select Save to Removable Drive, which will save it to the micro SD card I have inserted into the computer. And then we can click Eject and eject the micro SD card, then insert it into our 3D printer and get to printing. And here we are after all the prints. You can see everything pops together quite nicely and it looks just like it did on the computer, which is fantastic. However, now that I have it in my hands, I don't know if I like it better like this or if I should turn around this piece and have it like that. Kind of a hard decision, but I think I have to go with this. Regardless of what we choose though, once we're ready, we can go ahead and super glue it together. Perfect. And with that, we are now ready for our business cards. And so there you have it, an introduction into the FreeCAD software. And thank you so much to Cole who emailed me suggesting this video. I hope you enjoyed it. But hey, thank you so much for you guys watching. I hope you did enjoy this video, and if you did, please feel free to hit the thumbs up and subscribe. And Lord willing, I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching, and please feel free to subscribe.
I just unplugged half my lights and I look so much stinking better. However, at the beginning of the video, they're already unplugged because I'm filming this part